We've been RVers for, well, about 7 or 8 years probably, graduating from tent camping to pop-up to, we're on our third motorhome now.
Hi, I'm Kim Tolson and I'm the traveling therapist. It's my passion to teach therapists how to navigate online private practices and multiple income streams so they can travel the world. I'm a digital nomad with a virtual insurance-based private therapy practice and a multi-six-figure coaching business. I'm obsessed with entrepreneurship and developing tools that can help therapists live an adventurous lifestyle. In this podcast, I will discuss my journey as a digital nomad. I'll chat with other traveling therapists and help you navigate the complexities of running an online insurance-based practice. I'm so glad to have you with me on this journey. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Traveling Therapist. We're joined today with Ann Leggett. She's a traveling therapist, and I'm so excited to hear her story. You guys are going to think this is amazing. She's really doing this thing, and she's got tons of stuff to tell us about it. So, Ann, I'd love to turn it over to you and just ask you, how'd you go from being your typical therapist to a traveling therapist?
Well, first of all, thanks for doing this, and thanks for having me on. I'm really excited about this to share my story, and then also to hear the podcast and hear other stories as well. But my story starts. I'm a licensed professional counselor in Virginia, and I've been licensed since 2006. And I've done some form of private practice since was licensed. And so over the years, of course, I started to hear more and more about online therapy, telehealth, that kind of thing. And in September of 2019, I decided to just give it a shot and see what happened. And so I actually started off with one of the online companies and just to kind of see what I thought of it. And that was in September. And by November, I was like, oh, wait, I can do this on my own, make better money, operate exactly how I want to operate. And so in January of 2020, I started my online practice. And luckily, I had all of my ducks in a row before the pandemic hit. And nice. So I already had, I was already set up with a telehealth platform and was just kind of ready to go. And so, of course, with the pandemic, I moved to all telehealth and never really looked back. And so over the years, my boyfriend and I, we watched YouTube channels about RV life and sailing life and
nice.
that kind of thing. And we've been RVers for, well, about 7 or 8 years, probably, graduating from tent camping to pop-up to, we're on our third motorhome now. So nice. We just decided, let's give it a shot. Let's go on the road and see how it goes. As I started to learn more about laws and regulations around providing therapy when you travel and telehealth and that kind of thing. So that's kind of, the progression of it, how I came to be doing first telehealth and then traveling.
That's amazing. Yeah. Did you find that your clients, did you get any pushback when you decided to go all online, to change from brick and mortar to all online, or was it a pretty easy transition?
I got a little bit of pushback until the pandemic. I had one or two that just really were not interested they wanted office-based therapy. And then when everyone was doing telehealth, they kind of came on board. And so now, I have people seek me out because it's telehealth, because of the convenience. My specialty is women's mental health and perinatal mental health issues. And so, women are often the caretakers in their families, so they're trying to find childcare, or if they're looking after older adults or whatever, it's just much easier to have a telehealth session than to, have to go to an office by a certain time for a certain amount of time, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. So you transitioned from a brick and mortar to an online practice. And then, of course, we all know COVID hit. So everybody then became online therapists, even those that didn't want to be. Right. And then somewhere along the line, you decided to go all in with the traveling online practice. I'm just wondering if you could tell us a little bit about that, how you transitioned into that.
Well, like I said, we've been doing a lot of travel, RV travel for several years. And every time I came home from a trip, I didn't want to come home from the trip.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to stay on the road. I wanted to, go a different place. And I was just kind of thinking, how can I do that? How can I live this life? And when you follow the YouTubers, they talk about different sources of income and how they're doing it and that kind of thing. And this just really made perfect sense to take my practice on the road. It was just, I wanted to do it. And I was lucky enough to have a job that afforded me the opportunity to do it from the road. And lots of people of course, do work from home now because of the pandemic. And I think it's really shifted the workforce in general and the economy in general. But being able to do it, there was some overwhelm at first, like, how do I do this?
Yeah.
How do I work in the little banquet, the dinette that's in an RV, and what do I make the office look like, and that kind of thing. So there was a lot of research to be done around just the actual the RV life and managing a practice, just the backside of it, the back end of it, the practice, the admin stuff, how to do that from the road.
Absolutely. Yeah. And before we hopped on to record, you were starting to share that you had put your house up for sale. Like, some people, they go do this, but they keep a place to live. But it sounds like you're really all in, like the RV is where you live. I was wondering if you could talk about that process a little bit, how that went for you.
Yes. So, yeah, I went from living in a house. It was 23 years maybe that I
Oh, wow.
lived in that house. My daughter grew up there. It was just, a lovely neighborhood, loved my neighbors and that kind of thing. But I knew that I wanted to go on the road, and I knew that the house was more than I wanted, and the housing market was very much a seller's market. When I sold back in August, and when the house was on the market, it was on the market for about 6 weeks, I think. And we had the RV parked in our driveway. And so while the realtor was showing the house, I would go, into the RV to have that session. And so that gave me a little bit of a taste of it, and, how I wanted, what device I wanted to use, how, I wanted the background to look. Was it going to change? What, just sort of the logistics of it, even, while the house was being shown.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And so the transition was of course, now I say the transition was just easy and great.
It was wonderful.
In the middle of it, though, it was stressful. It was pretty stressful. Just selling a house is stressful anytime. But so what we did was we set aside, the proceeds from the sale of the house, so that, because when you go into RV life or any kind of full-time travel life, it's a good idea to have an exit plan, because for one thing, we could hate it. I didn't think we would, because we've done RVing for so long, but we needed an exit plan in case life threw something at us that we weren't quite prepared for or whatever. So we do have an exit plan. We just are hoping not to have to use it for a while.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I get this question a lot. What was the process like of having to downsize from a house you've been in for 23 years and get everything you need in this RV? Like, did you research how to do that? Like, how did you go about that process? I'm just curious.
Yes, we did a lot of research. There's a couple of, ebooks out there on, how to live RV life, full time. We had a couple, maybe 3 YouTubers that we followed who put out, content maybe once a week or every couple of weeks about life on the road. It was hugely helpful with figuring out connectivity and that kind of thing. The downsizing was quite a process, because we had been in that same house for so long, and so quite a bit of had accumulated. But there was sort of a moment where I realized that the material things that I had accumulated over the years, just really, there were a few things that were precious to me, but really not that much. And so the transition into the RV has been really easy, just in terms of, I love the coziness of it. I love, my tiny little kitchen that I do a lot of cooking. I actually cook a lot, but, and trying to adjust. So we had one RV that we had before we went full time, and we thought it was going to be just the right layout and big enough and all that. And we ended up, within about 4 months, we bought another RV, and we've got that one up for sale.
And I'm guessing the new one's bigger, more space, or
it's actually shorter, but it has a couple of slide outs. So there's a lot more floor space, which really is great because we do have two medium-sized dogs. And so it's very helpful, to have kind of that extra floor space and not just one hallway, which is sort of what we had before.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah. We decided to be digital nomads in January 2020, and that was our big thing. We sold everything pretty much. And then COVID hit, so we, decided to sign a lease, and we've just been down in Hollywood, Florida ever since. But it's so amazing, like the tendency to continue to like accumulate stuff, because now we're doing the digital nomad thing again. This February, we're going like really all in. We're not going to have a place to live or anything like that. We're going to do Airbnbs and this travel club that I'm a member of, but we're having to do the downsize process all over again, because literally we've just accumulated so much stuff. So it just feels like there must be an art to like not accumulating stuff when you've just got this little space that you're trying to live in and travel in. And I'm just always so curious about that.
There probably is an art that I still have not really developed. Of course, I'm much better than I used to be, but there is still a tendency to accumulate even in a small space. Because it's almost like I'm daring myself to see if I can, can I find a place for this? Do I need 2 laptops and the iPad? And how will I decorate? Where can I put how do I personalize the space? Because they all look like motel rooms, basically. And so I have this bit of, my heart seizes a bit every time I think about putting like a nail or a screw in the wall, because the walls are a little different than in a sticks and bricks home.
Oh, true. I never even thought about that.
Yeah. So it's kind of figuring out some of those things and how to make the space your own. Even though you own it, it looks like, it's the colors that the manufacturer picked out. It's color, it's the accessories and things that, that the manufacturer or the previous owner picked out. And so it's kind of trying to figure out some of that stuff, and figuring out pots and pans and what will fit in the microwave convection oven and stuff like that.
Wow.
Where will the tree go? The 2-foot Christmas tree that I have, where will it go? And that kind of thing. So it is quite you're still constantly like, kind of like you would be in a house, like constantly thinking, do I have room for this? And how will this serve me? It's much more now of how will this serve me, to put this in my house, in my home, because space is at such a premium.
That's such a good way to look at it. Yeah. How will this serve me? Yeah, because we're trying to figure out, like, all right, we're literally going to take a bag each and try to live out of these 2 bags and go to these Airbnbs and these other properties. And what are the like necessities to take in this bag? So we're going through that process now. Like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Yeah. So did you keep a storage area for your stuff, or did you just get rid of everything?
No, I have one storage unit that is in what I call our home base, which is where my parents are both. They're elderly, they're in good health for their age, but which kind of goes into one of the hiccups of this life that I had imagined, was that we really started out thinking we'd be doing the Great American Road Trip. And, and that has not really come to fruition just yet. Okay. Part of it is that COVID does keep popping up. Like one of our first stops, one of our first things that we planned to do was go down to Pensacola for a while. But that area, when we were planning to go, the hospital census was so high, and we just really set that aside. And then we kind of came into the holiday season where, so we want to be nearby for, family coming in and my parents and that kind of thing. And so we have a home base that's really beautiful. It's out in the country. We have beautiful sunsets, and we really did luck out. And the storage unit is very, very close. We literally can walk to the storage unit, and
nice.
As we figure out what we need for the colder weather, now that it's finally getting colder, and we arranged that storage unit such that we knew there were things, of course, like large pieces of furniture and things like that we would not need until we went back into a house. But there were things that we weren't quite sure about. And so we put all that in the front of the storage unit. And the storage unit is actually large enough that I can park my car in it while we're traveling.
Oh, nice.
We tow a vehicle, but my car, we leave. We didn't really know what we were going to do about that. Do we sell my car? Do we need two vehicles? And that kind of thing. And so we ended up, for the time being, we're keeping the car, but it goes into storage when we go on.
Wow, that's so interesting. We've been struggling with the same thing, actually, because we have two cars. One is like this awesome convertible that we love, so that's the one we want to travel in. Right. But then we have an SUV that's like big, you can put stuff in it. So we're going back and forth. We're thinking like maybe leave it at like long-term airport parking places that are like $3 a day or something. We're going through all these, we're trying to figure all that stuff out too. So there's so many little things to think about.
Yeah, a lot of details to work out that are not even related to how to move your practice, on the road. It's stuff like, how do you live your life, that, on the road. And so you have that extra layer of how do we work from the road, and how do we work in a HIPAA compliant best practices kind of way.
Absolutely.
And how do we live? So.
Absolutely. Yeah. So do you mind if we shift to that a little bit, just talking about, the HIPAA compliant thing, and also the licensing issues, and, how did you figure all that out? Be curious just to hear your journey with that and what you've discovered. I know you're licensed in Virginia, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
That's where I'm licensed too.
And so what I've done, which is basically, I've just learned so much from the Facebook groups, Amber Lida's group. I took her course. That was hugely helpful and really gave me the confidence to do what I'm doing. That really started to lay the groundwork for the practice side of this. But, doing the research on, what the regulations, telehealth regulations and regulations as far as location, having to, do the research when I'm in a particular state, what I can and can't do. Because there are a few states that do not allow you to practice, even if the person is in your place of where you're licensed. So even if all my clients are in Virginia, there's one or two states that do not allow me to practice if I'm in that state, even if my client's in Virginia. So it's kind of navigating some of that kind of thing. It's, just knowing that stuff is changing all the time and staying on top of that, and kind of staying, Facebook, for all of its, I have sort of a love-hate relationship with Facebook.
Yeah, me too.
but it has been really, really helpful just in terms of the information. If nothing else, it gives me a starting point to where do I do the research with regard to what the licensure regulations are, and that kind of thing. So
yeah, it's so interesting. I'm putting together a guide. It's almost done, of all the states, and I've contacted all of them for all the licensure types to find out, which ones can you practice in and which ones you can't. And there are a few that say, if you're not licensed in this state, you cannot practice here.
Right.
Even if your clients are our clients are physically located in Virginia. Virginia says we can practice, but some states say we don't care.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful.
You do have to be careful. And like I said, it's a really fluid time right now for the mental health field, or the practice of mental health. And I see some changes that are happening that I think are great, and the different associations, our professional associations are working toward, the national, licensure, recognition of what reciprocity and,
what is it? Compact
Yeah, yeah.
compact licensures,
Hmm.
within your profession, so you can practice in
Right,
every state. Hmm. Are
right.
you LCSW or LPC? I can't remember.
LPC.
Oh,
Hmm.
LPC. Okay, because I
LPC.
know
Yeah.
that LPCs are a little more advanced with that right now. It seems like
Hmm.
some of the
Hmm.
states are already signing on to a compact.
Right.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I hope LCSWs get the same thing soon.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I do have a task force for telehealth reform on Facebook if
Hmm.
anybody is into that sort of thing. We're always monitoring the legislation and encouraging people to write your legislators about this stuff so we can just freely travel and see clients
Hmm.
wherever we want to
Hmm. Hmm.
and not be bound to our state of licensure.
Right, right.
Yep, absolutely. So, just shifting a little bit, I'm just curious. People always seem to be interested in how are you deciding where to go? How long are you going to stay there? Do you just kind of wing it? Like, or is there a
Hmm.
plan behind it? I'm just curious what the process has been like for you and your boyfriend trying to decide all of that.
Well, there was a plan behind it.
Okay.
Like I said, the idea was, that we would do more of a cross country trip. And so now it's what was the Great American Road Trip has now turned into more of a hub and spoke style. The hub is here in Southside Virginia
Okay.
where we are, and then we do longer trips. We since August we've been to Nashville, done a couple of East Coast beaches. We love
Nice.
the Outer Banks, so we go down there, and we've been down there probably 3 or 4 times since we went on the road. And I love the idea of, it was always a dream of mine to spend maybe a summer at the beach, like rent a cottage and spend a summer and become sort of a quasi local. And so
Mm-hmm.
now we are looking more into that type of thing where we might go and stay for 2 or 3 months and still be within, just a few hours of driving distance from my home and my parents and that kind of thing. So
Nice. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, so cool. So have you found like a sweet spot with how long you like to stay in a place? Some people will say, we got to stay at least 30 days at a place to fully like
mm-hmm,
experience it. Some people will say,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
7 days in, I'm over it. I'm just
Yeah,
curious
yeah.
if y'all have a sweet spot.
We really haven't found that. We were in Nashville for 3 weeks
Nice.
in September, and that felt a little bit long. We were there for, my boyfriend he's an aircraft mechanic, and so he was getting the
Oh, right.
certification out there. And so yeah, we both definitely have the travel bug. He has a small plane, and we
Nice.
have the RV. None of it is new and shiny. So they're all
That's
kind of
okay.
fixer uppers, but it does give us, he that's really a passion of his. And so anyway, we were out there for about 3 weeks, and that felt a little bit long.
Gotcha.
you know
Mm-hmm.
the but that may have been, I mean, Nashville was great. It was fun, but there wasn't, we didn't really attach ourselves to a community or anything like that
Mm-hmm.
while we were there. And he was in school, all
Right.
day.
Yeah.
And so, that kind of interfered with our ability to really connect with, other campers and favorite restaurants or, whatever. And so one night is only long enough if we're actually on the road, and we're members of a program called Harvest Hosts.
Oh,
And
cool.
you, for just a really reasonable amount a year, I think it's like $100, you can overnight at hundreds of farms, wineries, breweries all across the country, museums. It's just whoever has a large enough parking lot to accommodate,
Oh my
an
gosh.
RV. And so that has really, really added to the experience. It's a night or two of dry camping, so no hookups.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the hosts don't have hookups, but you really do get to experience. It's off the beaten path, and you're getting to experience some local products, local wines, local foods, that kind of thing. And that's been probably one of the highlights of this so far.
That is
Has been,
so cool.
yeah, yeah. And it's just so reasonable, and it's just so fun.
Yes. So you could technically just go from place to place, or I guess you eventually need a hookup type thing, or
you really could, depending on what your power resources are. I mean, with a generator, some RVs, RV owners have solar power on their RVs. We don't have that. But if your batteries are charged and your gas tank is full and you can run the generator for a bit, then, and you can always find a dump station for gray water and black water and, that kind of thing. So yeah, theoretically you could do that. And that, would be fun too.
Wow, that's pretty cool for $100.
Yeah, and it allows us to add like another night onto most of our trips that, just at no additional expense,
Wow.
We'll find a winery or a brewery near our destination. And so we'll leave a day early and, stay overnight there and then go on to the destination, and we get there early in the day. So it really expands the experience of it.
That is so cool. Oh my gosh, I love that. It sounds so fun.
It is. It's really fun.
So how's it been like just traveling with your boyfriend? Do you guys have like the same travel style, or do you ever have like disagreements and like how, where you want to go or how long you want to stay? And I'm just curious, like, we're therapists, like from that perspective, like how does that go for you guys?
I think because we talked about it so much before we actually did it, that we knew what each other's dream destinations were,
Nice.
And we know each other's sort of travel style. Now I like to go and stay for a week at least, at a destination. He would be okay moving every 2 or 3 days.
Wow.
He's not as wild to really get immersed in, in the local culture. But other than that, we have very similar travel styles. And a lot of people ask us, how do you stay in the same, like, the camper, it just seems like it would be so small for 2 people. But we actually have a dedicated bedroom, which is helpful. Ours is a 35 foot Winnebago. And nice. So we have room for if we need space, one of us can go to the bedroom and read a book or watch TV even in bed. And when it's warm enough, we have the living space outside, the awning and the patio stay out all the time. And so that we consider living space. So, the day-to-day of it is really pretty easy. And then just in terms of, he's an independent contractor, and so as an aircraft mechanic, and so he's gone he usually can find work just about anywhere he goes, and so he's gone most of the day, and so there's not much of a worry, as far as him coming into a session. So I don't really, I don't have to kick him out of the RV. Occasionally I'll tell him, you need to be a little bit later tonight, stop by the grocery store or something, if I have a later appointment. But that has not been, even when we're on the road, he's a busy guy. He likes to stay busy. So he'll take the dogs and go out exploring while I'm having sessions.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's really great.
Yeah.
And being online therapists and our own bosses, we can just make our schedules work around what our partner's doing too, which is so cool.
Yes. It's that's been great too, just being able to set my own schedule and he and I can talk about it even from week to week or month to month, what that's going to look like.
Yeah. That's so great. Wow. It sounds so awesome.
It is.
I mean, it sounds like you guys are having a great time.
We are. Like I said, even though it's not worked out exactly as, exactly as we planned, but I am old enough to know that's kind of how life is.
That's true. That's true. Whether you're traveling or not, really.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So, I'm trying to think what else I want to ask you about all this. So what do you guys, I guess you guys have a home base, so like health insurance wise, that sort of thing, has that been an issue at all? Like trying to find coverage if you're traveling different places, or how are you guys dealing with that?
No, with, having a home base and I do have a physical address here in Virginia. And I get my insurance through the marketplace. Um,
Okay, right.
and he is a veteran. And so he has VA health benefits. And
Nice.
so that's worked out really well for us.
That's great. Yeah. Okay. Because I know that's a struggle for a lot of people. What am I going to
Hmm.
do? So you have a
Hmm.
physical address that you use
Yes,
for
yes.
stuff like that.
Yeah, and I see that question a lot in the groups too. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, my suggestion to people is to actually reach out to an insurance agent rather than trying to navigate the marketplace yourself.
Mm-hmm.
An insurance agent has the same offerings as the marketplace, the online presence, and you get clear answers, and you get sort of more personalized information. You can describe exactly what your situation is. And
Yep. I'm going to have some insurance people in the traveling therapist Facebook group
mm-hmm,
tomorrow
mm-hmm.
night, some
Yeah.
brokers. So
Yep.
I'm hoping that'll
Mm-hmm.
help people too, because I know that's a tough topic for some people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what do your clients think about you traveling? Do they realize you're on the road, or do you share that with them? Or
They do know that I'm on the road because there's really no mistaking an RV background. Even when I was in the other RV, the first time I logged on with a client, the first thing she said was, "Are you in an RV?" I hadn't even had a chance to go, "Well, and here's what's happening." So most of them do know, and they are you know a bit intrigued by it, and occasionally will ask me, where are you now? Where are you this week? What I find is I really kind of grappled with that question too. Like,
mm-hmm.
what do I share? How
Yeah,
much do I share about this, and that kind of thing. But really what I realize is they're not there to like quiz me on where I am and what I'm doing in my life. They weren't before, and they're not really now.
yeah,
So they still want to talk about their own issues, and redirecting is not even it's not an issue at all. It came up, it's come up a lot, when I talk to other therapists about it. It's like, what do you tell people? It's like, well, if they ask, I tell them that I'm living in an RV, and then we move on with the session. And
mm-hmm. That's been my experience too. Most
mm-hmm,
are just kind
mm-hmm.
of mildly curious, but then they're
Yeah,
like, okay,
yeah,
let's talk about
right,
me.
right, exactly. Exactly.
Oh, that's great. Let's see. I'm looking through my questions here.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what else we wanted to talk about. So are there any lessons that you've learned on this journey that you'd like to share with other traveling therapists or new traveling therapists that are just starting out with this?
Of course, the thing that pops into my head is to be flexible.
Mm-hmm.
And probably the lesson that I've learned over the years with regard to starting my own business or taking this next step of going online and then going on the road is to let go of perfection paralysis.
Mm.
There's a saying that someone used to say to me, ready, fire, aim. And because I would always think, okay, there's one more thing I can learn about this. There's one more thing that I like, bought all the programs and did all the workshops, and just so that I would be exactly ready for this. And there's a fair amount of trial and error. And
Mm. Mm.
as long as you're always functioning with the client's best interests in mind, as far as what you're and working ethically and legally, there's actually a lot of flexibility around some of those kinds of things. And so we talked about putting the house on the market probably 3 years ago, but
Mm.
it was not part of a let's put the house on the market and then travel. So, and I don't even know that was even on my radar 3 or 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And but once it was on the radar, boy, it was really on the radar.
I can
And
relate.
I was tired of, I love watching the YouTube channels, and I subscribe to several of them, but I wanted to be doing the things that that they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so rather than trying to figure out exactly what is the exact right, and I'd never sold a house before,
Yeah.
so I didn't really know, because we rented up until we bought the house that we lived in for 25 years,
Mm-hmm.
so there was a lot to learn, and it held me back for a little bit. And so that my bit of advice is really to go ahead and forge ahead without, learn as much as you can, of course, but there's so much that you learn along the way that you just won't know. You just won't know until you try it.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Yep. Thank you so much.
Sure.
It's all so helpful. Yeah. I can't wait to just watch your journey and follow you along the way and see everywhere you go.
Well, so many people have asked me, are you journaling? Have you started a blog? What are you going to do? And
yeah,
because people actually, like friends and family and stuff, are just very curious about it. And like, I'm in an RV and I work all day. What could possibly be that interesting about it? But then I did start to kind of keep a journal, and this is actually, this stuff that I'm troubleshooting my way through actually may be of interest to somebody.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, if you put it out there, let us know and we can add it to this episode so people can follow you.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So just wrapping up, how can people get a hold of you if they want to reach out or talk to you, or a client even that might be listening to this episode that might want to work with you?
Sure. So my website is compasspointetherapy.com. And my email is Anne, ANNE, at Anne Leggett, LPC. And so, I'm licensed in Virginia. And if anybody has questions about the RV life or what it's like, or, or being a therapist in an RV, I'd be happy to chat.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Yes. I'm glad you're doing this. I think this is a great idea.
Thank you. I'm so excited about it too. I just can't wait to get all these interviews in. You're my third one. I think I've got like 10 people scheduled already. So I'm so excited about it.
Good.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. And I hope you just have a wonderful adventure.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for listening to the Traveling Therapist podcast. For show notes, links, and downloads, head over to thetravelingtherapist.com, where you'll be able to learn more about my journey, the courses I've created for you, and other exciting resources to make your dreams become a reality. If you've enjoyed this episode, please share with your traveling therapist friends, subscribe to the podcast, and if you love this episode, please leave a review.